So, in my past video, while I was trying to talk about normal marriages, I did divert the topic into religion, communal practices, social practices, as well as health related topic because they're all important for human beings to have a normal, functional, uh, good quality of life. Now, in our modern lives, all of us have been raised either by parents where both parents were working, or one parent was the primary breadwinner, and most of the times it was the male of the family who's the primary breadwinner, earning the majority of the income, while the women, even though they might have been equally educated as the men, were only the secondary breadwinners, earning a lesser salary than their spouses, or working only part time, or some of them just doing a hobby like pursuit and supplementing the income that they might receive from their spouses. Like I had music teachers, dance teachers, art teachers. People would go and learn sports from people who might be just supplementing their income, and were only the spouses who were the secondary breadwinners of their family. And also, the third type of people that I grew up with were people like my own mother, who only worked for about a few months in her married life, and there were other women who didn't work at all and were only complete homemakers, like some of my aunts. So all these people are the ones who grew up and raised and nurtured and cared took the generation of people from my age group who are now in their middle ages, and also likely might be going through some crisis of consciousness currently, because right now there is a global awakening to what path of life or way of life should we be pursuing in our lives, considering what we grew up with, considering what we aspire and see in the media as an aspirational thing, and also considering those people who have a active religious practice. Now, I grew up in a family where my father was not too religious. He had some problems with religious practices being done at home, which were too ritualistic. And my mother's family was very ritualistic about certain practices related to Hinduism. But I myself never picked up any religious or ritualistic practice until late in my life, in the last uh, end of my 30s and early 40s. Only did I really start thinking about religion as a way of understanding life. So that's why any kind of insight I provide in my videos regarding religion is a very new insight, because I didn't grow up practicing fervently or ritualistically anything related to religion. And as a Bengali person, I would go and celebrate Durga Puja function, but I took it more as a communal and social event than as a way to connect to God. But in the recent years, when I had health issues, even before my health issues started, I started slowly getting connected to God, and I started watching videos on different religions that would show up sometimes on my online video profile. And in general, also, since childhood days, different religions and some aspects of different religions in childhood, in early adulthood, in the time I lived in Utah, all of them influenced my perception about certain religions. That's why I am speaking about religion as part of having a good healthcare practice or family practice, not because everyone should do it, or because if you're not aligning with any religion, you should do it. But if you have aligned in recent years or through childhood days, uh, to any religious practice, I would recommend everyone to delve a little bit more deeper into why you are doing that practice than simply following what your religious leader or your family or your social group has taught you to understand about any religion or any ritual that you do in a religion. That's why when I was talking about donations as a social practice, every religion actually teaches us about donating. Either you donate to the religious organization or you're donating to the poor. But what I want people and would like people to understand while I am making these videos, and is what is an understanding that came to me from my own suffering and on my own understanding of principally what I believe each of the religion is trying to address, is that when they talk about giving to the church or giving to the poor or giving to the needy, first we need to understand and gain discernment of who is the true needy person. Like, for example, my father having come from a village family and his family having faced a few years of financial struggles, was a needy person according to his belief. And it was true, when he was in his 20s to 40s, he was financially needy because he had a couple of dependents, and also because he didn't have that higher salary. But now, when he's retired, he's actually not a financially dependent person because he was a government employee, and based on his government employment, he has a retirement income, he has free health care. He also doesn't have a wife or kids who are really deeply financially dependent on him to be a provider. As a result, he is one of the freest person in life who can discretionally use any of his retirement income on self or on others according to his soul desires. Now, this is where many men, women, children are lost right now because they don't understand their soul desires. Now, for example, if you were a Buddha like person who was having a lot of infighting in their home, that's why Buddha left his princely life and went and became a destitute poor by traveling the globe, or traveling the globe that he knew. So he traveled all around India, China like areas to preach whatever he discerned as a result of the suffering he had faced when he was having a lot of political fighting in his family, and he had renounced his princely life because he didn't have the capacity to process that lifestyle, or even if he did have the capacity to process it, he didn't discern that is what his soul should learn. He discerned he should learn more about enlightenment, find out about suffering or how to reduce suffering from what he was suffering from. And as a result, Buddhism's teachings stemmed from whatever attachment related problems he had faced when he was growing up as a prince. And he faced the political challenges, attachment to withholding power. Those kind of challenges is what he must have faced as a prince, right? So, as a result, he taught things related to detachment. He taught things related to how to minimize suffering by reducing some of our desires. But is Buddha completely right or wrong in what he taught us? Based on the suffering he faced, he was right in teaching what he taught. And there were many poor people who gravitated towards him and his teachings because there were poor people on earth who are suffering due to lack of things in their life as well. While Buddha was a prince who suffered, he suffered from the lack of true love in his life. Whereas the people who he taught when he was traveling all across India and China like areas, when he was traveling geographically in these Central Asia parts, what he met was he found love in people, he found generosity in poor people. That's why in Buddhism they talk about Bhiksham Dehi, meaning he is begging for alms from ordinary people. And it is the ordinary people mostly who must have given him food, clothing, shelter, majority of the times, because they are the people who were suffering too from lack of abundance in their life related to food, clothing, shelter. Because the one who suffers the most through lack is the one who has the capacity to learn from that, and which is the same teaching which also happened to people in Middle East, be it when they were Christians, when they were Jews, when they were Egyptians, when they were Israelites, when they were Roman under the Roman rule, when they were under the Greek rule, when they were under Mughal rule. Doesn't matter who was ruling them. Most of the time, if someone is ruling a certain population, what happens from generation after generation of the same empire ruling for thousands of years is that those people start forgetting the needs of the common people, and they become too accustomed to the glory they have, wealth they have, and abundance they have in their life, and they are so immersed in enjoying the luxuries of life that they have, that they forget about the rest of the population. And that's why we start getting religious leaders, teachers, prophets manifest from these suffering itself. That's how Buddhism came, because even though he had a lot of luxury and he saw his family enjoy a lot of wealth, possibly, he couldn't find the happiness in that wealth and luxury. He found strife and other political challenges and attachment to wealth as a problem zone. That's why he went to the opposite direction. Same way, another religious teacher, Prophet Muhammad, he was also a prince, I believe, and because he was a ruler of a certain place, and also because he found suffering as a man who lost his wife, that suffering led him towards closer towards God. And that's why in his teachings he has taught to preserve the family life. And in order to preserve the family life also, possibly he also taught that if a man is maybe not that happy with his marriage, that instead of letting go of the wife that he has already married, he has given permission in that religion for men to, instead of just simply divorcing the wife, to go ahead and have a second or third marriage. But in all these teachings, and in Christianity, what happened in Christianity? In Christianity, what happened was that while the Catholic Church didn't permit divorces initially, and I don't know whether in the future they will ever permit it. In some parts, they started permitting it later on in life, when people had really cruel marriages, cruel sufferings in their marriages, and Catholic Church decided to annul certain marriages if the spouse had mental health illness and things like that. And but since the Catholic Church was not able to meet the needs of a majority of people, we also had the Protestant Church and other branches of Christianity also come up later on in life to address the needs of those people who were having tough marriages and who wanted to get out of their marriage, but they also wanted the religious absolution from leaving the spouse that they were initially married to. Now, all these paradigms came up on earth in different places of earth, and in modern lifestyle we are permitted divorces culturally across many countries as a result of these different religious beliefs coming up slowly. And in these divorces also, why did the concept of alimony come? Because many people, both in Muslim religion and outside of the Muslim religion, came to realize that if a man leaves a wife, and if that wife never earned any money, and for 20-30 years had devoted all her life to only family care. Then, if she gets divorced, she doesn't have a need and more means to earn the money. That's why the concept of alimony came. The concept of child support came, that if a man was vile enough to leave the wife, not because he had a bad marriage, but he was just giving into his fleshly desires of just pursuing another exciting relationship with another woman. As a result, he left his wife. He should have the responsibility to take care of the progeny that he has already produced with the wife he led some years with. As a result, the concept of alimony and child support also came. That because you have to also be fair to the other members of the society. That's why certain rules and regulations were passed either by religious institutes or by governments to help people achieve some freedom and fairness and justice in the way in which they lead their life, which is not completely misaligned with the ways of God. Because ways of God has to see the suffering and need of every human being, not just some human being. And that's why, say you are rich or you're average income person, and your wife has zero income or from a poor family, and you just let her go just because she didn't match your expectations from what you wanted from a spouse. It is unfair of you to just simply leave her because she didn't match your expectations, and because you have been provided something by the blessing by the universe to have been born in a family which has a lot of financial or other abundance. So if you didn't understand how to share it with someone who is of a poorer family, or who is of a less earning capacity than you or no earning capacity than you haven't learned God's ways, because God's way is telling you to teach how to help the needy or someone who is suffering or someone who doesn't have the same blessings as you. Each religion's teaching is teaching you this in some way or the other. So that is where the family life comes into picture, and why religion or some religious practice or some principles and morals of religious practice has to be present in a married life, even when you're married to someone, even when you're separated from them, even when you're divorcing from them, even when you're dating someone. You have to have that basic ethics, morals, principles of humanity present in your interaction with another human. Because, say you're a man in your 20s dating a woman in her 20s. In this modern life, dating is very common globally. Even if you are from an ultra conservative culture, some form of mixing and social mingling might be allowed by your family to help you decide whether you want to marry this person or the other. So if it is a ultra conservative society, or if it is a conservative Muslim or Hindu or any religious family that doesn't want you to mix and mingle too much with the opposite gender, they will have some lesser flexible ways for interacting with the opposite gender. But if you are from an ultra modern family where mixing and mingling with the opposite gender is permitted, even then you will see most cultures will still restrict their women from mixing and mingling too much. Why is that a necessity and a principle that even though many women try to break, I feel most women shouldn't break? Why? Because a woman's body is created to be the receiver of both the sexual energy from the man, and a woman's lifestyle in our society so far was created for the woman to be the receiver of the generosity of the man they marry, the family they were born into, the society they marry into, and the culture they marry into. And why is women's body made biologically to be the receiving element, and the man's body made biologically to be the giving element. Because and women's body is not simply about the receiving element. After you have had sex with someone, you're receiving the sexual energy. That's why you feel beautiful and loving towards the man that you had sex with, and which is how women are biologically designed. That's why most women, majority of the women, if they have slept with a man, after they have received the sexual energy from them, most of them will fall in love. 90% of the women will fall in love with the man they are continuously having sex with. But it is not necessary for the man to do that, because the man has been the giver, first of all, hasn't developed the capacity. If the man hasn't developed the capacity and discernment to understand who they should sleep with, that's when majority of the men are failing in understanding how to be a giver. Because while women have been at the receiving end of everything that the man dishes out to them, be it abuse, be it less finances, be it less generosity, be it less love, be it sexual trauma, be it a good love making, be it a good provider, be it a good generous man as a spouse, whatever the woman is receiving, she has accepted. Most women accept whatever they are receiving. Very few will reject what they receive from the spouse they married. If they have a mental health issue, then they will reject it. If they had a higher purpose and there was something wrong in which they were given something by the man, then they might reject it. If they are average women, they will accept most of the things that they are being dished. They will hold on to the energy, they will forgive it, because generation after generation, century after century, women have learned the principles of forgiveness, principles of accepting whatever they are dished out. Many women, because they are also progeny of rapes, progeny of wars, progeny of social distress, and continuously have marital rape also happening to them, most women even accept that as the part of their regular life, right? But the thing is, because there has been a lot of men currently being born who are entitled to be there being the man, and some of those men are now forgetting how to be a giver as well. That's why the generation of women who had a lot of rapes happening to them, maybe, or the generation of women who maybe after lifetime experienced some dark experiences in their different lifetimes, or the generation of women who had a lot of poverty because the men in their family were not responsible breadwinners, or even if they were responsible breadwinners, they didn't have the generosity to share and give what they have earned to the women in their lives. That's how the modern society got formed in the last century or more, where many of the women's education and empowerment related activities started happening, because some men and some women socially started understanding that they can't solve the problem of some of the poor, where a man is drinking away his money, what that he's earning, or spending away the money in gambling, or spending his life in social activities where, instead of focusing on his marriage and family life. And as a result, those women who are now left destitute in society because their man either spends away all the money he earns in his own vices, or the man is not responsible enough to save enough money for his whole family and only spends on himself, or the man has a lot of money, can have the capacity to spend also a lot of money, but has decided, forgotten how to be a giver and provider for the women and his family. Or if there are men who are dying after a war, or and as a result the women now don't have any financial backing, or the social systems were created in, say, Britain like places, where only the male heir could gain the property rather than the women. If a man, say, had, like in the book written by Jane Austen. We see this a lot where some families may have 4 5 daughters, and instead of the man, when the man is dying, instead of the property of the man going to the woman, this widow, and the 4 5 daughters, in olden times some of those properties used to go to the next male heir, and if that next male heir was generous enough to share that property that he has received, say from his uncle or granduncle or really distant relative, if he's generous enough to take care of his cousins and female members of that man who died, whose property he has gained, then those women might have a okay life. But if those men didn't have that generosity in them, they just gained whatever property they gained, then what happened to those women? They had to come up with ways to fight for their rights, either fight for it legally or fight for it in a manipulative way, or the third way was to change and educate themselves, change the legal systems, change the social systems, or become financially independent, so that this injustice couldn't continue on for those families who really needed the money, who really needed the property of their parents when their parents had died, but weren't able to gain it in legal ways. And that's why slowly the legal systems, social systems, religious systems started shifting and changing globally, right? But has the legal, social, religious system uniformly changed across the globe? No. Every country has changed something that isn't working and modified it according to the culture of that area, according to what is culturally acceptable, according to what is socially acceptable, according to what is religiously acceptable. But one thing that is actually not religiously, culturally, socially, in God's way acceptable is men forgetting how to be a giver. Now, the only men who forget how to be a giver in the true sense, based on what abundance they had in their life, determines the future path of that man. That's why sometimes we have impotent men coming up in society, being birthed in societies where that whole generation after generation of family stopped being a good provider for the family. Then what is the point of having giving more progeny to a whole bloodline if that whole set of families, century after century, decade after decade, has forgotten how to give to the women what men are biologically, religiously, morally actually meant to provide to the world? If they are not able to do it, it's not that in those societies women are not coming up who are becoming independent. They are becoming independent. If in my family I have seen men not be generous in some aspect that they could have had generosity. Like, for example, if you were born poor and you didn't have financial abundance, but if you were a farmer, if you are a farmer who had a small bit of land, say a couple of acres of land, as a farmer you may not have wealth, as a farmer you may not have materially many things, but you still had materially the land to grow some good crops. Now, as a farmer, your generosity lies in raising the crops according to earthly laws, ensuring that your land is kept clean, the energy of the land is clean and pure. And as a farmer, if you were a landowner, say, who owns acres of lands, and you are hiring thousands of farmers to work under your rule, then also you have to keep your thousands of acres clean and free of dark energies, keep it abundance filled. But you can't keep it abundance filled, you can't keep it free of dark energies if you're not serving the purpose that God has given based on your socio-economic circumstance, your gender, and the need of the hour of that generation in which you are born. That's why abundance only comes in different forms to only those people who are able to progress their life in a way that is aligned with the need of the hour, as well as the blessings they were provided by God, as well as the things they give and receive in a balanced manner from the world, because you have to understand how to give and receive in the balanced manner. That's why a woman, if she is being raped by many men, can't continue to be a receiver. If you have been raped by many men, say you are a prostitute, and in prostitution also there is a good way, clean way of doing prostitution and teaching men how to be good to women, and there is a dirty way in prostitution, and there is a middle path. Now if you are doing prostitution in the good and clean way, God is not going to make that prostitution illegal in some way or the other. But if you are allowing the dirtiest of practices, the vilest of practices to emerge in life simply for the sake of earning money, then those women who are being abused there, those women, let's say women are being sex trafficked or other things, that will eventually fail someday, that will eventually fall down, break down someday. And even if it doesn't fail down, break down, the women who are the progenies, the men and women who are the progenies of such vile acts, now have a sole purpose to destroy that in some way or the other. It can be destroyed by the men becoming impotent. It can be destroyed by the women becoming so fed up of sexual based practices that they will either become very religious, very pious, not want to focus only in the sin of the blood, sin of sexual desires, right? That is what their sole purpose will end up becoming. And then they might transition to a different religion, they might transition to a different culture, move away from the society where maybe their parents or they were raped a lot. They wouldn't want to ideally stay in that same social setting where their lives were ruined, be it the woman child progeny or male child progeny, be it a woman who was sex trafficked or a man who was sex trafficked. They would end up having that as a sole purpose to destroy it in some ways. Now if that man is not able to destroy it in some ways, even though that was their purpose, or a woman doesn't do it, and you keep receiving, or the man keeps giving, being a giver, you are misaligned, because your sole purpose, inner soul desire for the reason to be born in that family which had a lot of sexual health problems, or did a lot of vile things, if you haven't aligned with the purpose in which you were born, that's when you fall into traps of addiction, traps of being the kind of man you were meant to be but you didn't become, or the kind of woman you were meant to be but didn't become, because you got trapped in the programming of your family, you got trapped in the programming of your social systems, and didn't decide to break that which you came to break. So currently though, there are many people on earth who are being born to break some of these vile social paradigms that aren't good for propagation of society, good for propagation of any culture, good for propagation of any religion as well. That's why people sometimes, when you are facing opposition to the religious teaching you are giving to another person, or you've been told by your religion, go and spread the message of this God to everyone. Now you may want to spread the message of God to everyone, and you may have taught also thousands and millions of people the religion's teachings, but if the person in their heart and soul doesn't have self-knowledge, doesn't know self-care, doesn't understand and discern what is the principle behind the practice you're doing for a particular religion, and just blindly follows it without understanding the principle, then you're violating actually even the teaching of that God or religious faith that you want to follow. So that's why it's important that the more discernment and self-understanding you gain, that should be the first founding principle of every human being on earth. No matter where you're living, what social circumstance you have, what financial circumstances you have, what gender you have, what sexual leanings you have, because each of it, your sexual leaning has a purpose, your gender has a purpose, your socio-economic status has a purpose. But in all of that, you have to also understand the right balance in give and take has to continue happening for humanity to function in a balanced way. So, if you are poor, then you have come to understand, if you were born in a poor family, part of your life experience is not simply about earning a lot of money. If you saw your parent in India, let's say 10,000, 20,000 is the minimum salary of a low income worker. Now, if 10,000, 20,000 rupees is the salary of a low income worker, and you grew up seeing your family earning only 10,000 and barely subsiding and using every penny as best as they can, part of your life experience, life journey is to understand how to manage finances well. Another part is to understand how to earn more money. But the third aspect, which most human beings forget when they are born poor, or they are suffering a lot in their life due to illness or some other calamity that happened, like natural calamities, where you might have been very rich 10 years back, but suddenly because of a natural calamity you lost everything. Now you're completely poor and you don't have all the home and finances or the care and love that you had from living in a particular community, because that whole community got destroyed. Now, as a result, whatever the reason for your poorness, for your suffering, for your loss, sometimes a person might lose their past life based on if they suddenly got divorced from a spouse. All these loss and suffering that you have encountered in your life has a place in your life to teach you something about leading a meaningful life. And for the poorest persons on earth, one thing they have to learn is how to receive as well. If you are poor, or if you were rich and suddenly got poor, you have to understand the mercy of God. You have come to understand the mercy of God's ways, mercy of humans and mercy of humans' ways. That's why you need to understand and discern how to receive. You have to become the receiver of the society. You can't be the giver of society, not in material ways. You become the material receiver of society. And in becoming the material receiver, you can also start discerning what kind of receptivity or things that are being given to you are being given out of good motives, what things are given out of bad motives. Say someone is poor on the streets, and someone who is on the streets and has become poor for some reason, because maybe their parents died, maybe their social system has completely broken down because of a natural calamity, maybe because they don't have family, maybe because they ran away from a family which was very abusive and they couldn't take the abuse. Whatever the reason you are homeless, whatever the reason you are living in a slum like area, or you are dependent financially because you earn very less money, whatever the reason, maybe you got a disease, as a result your brains that used to function really excellently before and gave you a good job earlier, now you can't function at that level. So now you have to do a minimum wage work instead of doing a high paying job. So you have a loss, you are not able to function. Maybe your spouse left you. The spouse is such a person who's not giving you alimony. You don't have any money and you didn't know how to earn money anymore. So now you have to either come up with a way to earn money, or you have to beg. So now when you are begging though, if you don't discern who is giving you money, who is giving you advice, who is helping you has some ulterior motives or not, you can end up feeling really grateful that this person gave you, say someone gave you 5,000 rupees. And that's a lot of money for someone who's really poor and is barely earning any money. For him, 5,000 rupees might be, or her, that 5,000 rupees might be great. But if that person has given you that 5,000 rupees money to eventually make you indebted to them over time, and to draw you into some illicit activities, like doing some illegal activities like prostitution or drug selling or other things, you have then failed to learn the lesson you were supposed to learn as a poor person. And it's not that God doesn't give you mercy. God will provide you chances of learning a better lesson. If the when your family really had zero money, and you had forgotten about God, and you had forgotten about mercy of God, at that time you have taken some 5,000 rupees again and again monthly from someone and done some minor illegal activities, God will still forgive that for a while. But again, if you have again by after 2-3 years of earning that kind of money, not willing to live that kind of lifestyle that is the basest form of living, then you are not learning the lesson you came to learn as a poverty stricken person. You're not learning the lesson of understanding how to earn money the right way, how to earn money the best way given your social circumstances. And also you are forgetting to have faith in God, that God will send you the right resource from the right person if you set that vision and goal that I want to earn money in the right ways only. Then only you will be able to earn the money in the right ways. If you didn't set that vision, if you forgot your soul purpose and didn't awaken to that soul purpose that I need to earn money in the right ways, you will keep earning money just because your family was poverty stricken, and you will keep earning money in whichever form it comes to you. But while you can keep earning money in whichever form it comes to you, after a certain point, if you didn't discern the right things, then certain things will happen in your life which will end up not providing you the happiness